Hey, we're live. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning to the BAMP podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty. I'm here with a cornucopia of talented fellows, and we're going to talk about supers, media, and RPGs. And directly to my right in the grid is Mr. Alan Barr of, I always get the name of your company wrong. I'm going to make sure I say it right, Alan. Gallant Night Games. How you doing, Alan?
I'm good, and that was correct. So it's a win-win.
Ah, sweet.
And he does have the cool announcer voice.
He has a deep baritone. If he's didn't have a career currently in singing, I would recommend at least getting into karaoke because there's a feature for you there, sir.
You haven't heard me sing. You don't want to say that.
All right. You might have, if you aren't aware of Gallant Night Games, you've probably heard of their products. Tiny Supers was a big hit this year that came out. Solar Blades and Comic Spells was a big splash. Tiny Dungeon has been a big deal, and you guys put out the Zorro role-playing game a little while ago.
We did, yep.
That got a lot of press. So
yeah,
good to have you, sir.
Thanks.
Sitting next to Alan, also on my right, is Dan Hauser, looking like he's the troubled kid in the back of Study Hall. How you doing, Dan?
Yeah, that's right. No, yeah. Hey, everybody, how's it going?
All right. And below me here, in the Jan Brady spot, is Owen K.C. Stevens. How you doing, Owen?
Hi, folks. I'm good. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. And over here. Sorry. Got through the gang signs, I guess. There's Walt Rebelliard. How you doing, Walt?
Hola. Good morning.
Good to see you, sir. All right, so the sensible premise of this show is let's talk about best, worst, weirdest supers media, and then we'll talk about games the second half of the show. Anyone got something queued up they want to talk about?
Yeah, the Kickstarter for Dreadstar is going on. I'm hyped about that. I've always been a huge fan of basically everybody involved right now, and they're doing multiple covers and all of that, stretch goals. But Dreadstar is just one of those comics. It's like, if they can make a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I would like to see them try to make a Dreadstar movie, because I think that's really good stuff, But then again, you go to the other stuff in that universe, like Hardcore Station, and you're like, okay, more Dreadstar, please. And then they did. There's more Dreadstar coming, so that's awesome. I'm down with that. Dreadstar is returning, and I am down with that. They actually, they funded in 14 hours. That was nuts, just crazy.
Yeah, even through the apocalypse, they funded. We've had Ron Myers on several times. He's a hell of a guy, and they got Jim Starlin on board, and it is an all new 100-page adventure. Blah blah blah. Definitely check it out. I'm a backer.
I was fortunate enough to meet Jim at C2E2, not this past year, but 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty nice. So just watching him sketch is amazing. But yeah, it just looks so good.
Yeah. All right, cool. Walt, how about you? What do you want to talk about today?
I don't know, but I need a set of boots like that.
Right?
Those that looks
like abs like that.
I could. Well, the abs I'm working on after I lose my baby weight, but then
I feel like you might have waited a little long to make that move.
I recently had a major injury, so I packed on about 20 pounds. So now I'm in the process of cutting it off again, and it's just adjusting. But I think that those boots would be a worthy goal to motivate me.
Those are like those calves for those boots, though, man.
Those are Captain America boots, aren't they?
Yeah, those are definitely Captain America boots.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I have the calves because before my injury, I usually fight 3 to 4 times a week.
Oh, so what do you fight? I'm just MMA, kickboxing.
I do Kempo. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I do Filipino martial arts. So
seems like of all of us, you're the only one prepared for this friggin' podcast. Well, you got swords, Kempo.
Well,
you're looking at the Spider-Man video game.
And he's stuck inside like the rest of us. So fat lot of good that preparation is done.
Well, only part of the day because I work at night, so it's a thing. But I mean, as far as like the calves go, I right now I have one calf. that's looking good.
Are you having to rock the knee scooter at work?
No, I kind of got to sit at my desk right now. But everything else is rock and roll, cops and robbers, and Dunkin' Donuts. So
nice,
right on. But those boots look like a worthy goal. The swords I don't need. The swords I have plenty.
I mean, that sword is also a tiny little axe as well. People tend to forget that.
If I need a tiny little axe, I can just reach down and grab a kukri. which
Oh, wow.
these things are
Told you.
amazing.
Oh,
Prepared.
I thought you couldn't
Yeah,
unsheath
my
those
friend.
without
Hold on.
drawing blood. Well, what do you?
No, that's-
Yeah, I was afraid until they're very cold. How about that? You don't want a snow burn, my friend. He'll cut you and I'll freeze you.
I'm so glad.
Or
I came
maybe
on
I'll
this.
bring out Ralph Garman Shazam. What will we do about that, sir?
I'm so
Nice
glad you came on this
Shazam.
too, Alan. I'm a huge fan of your company and
I know
your
you
product.
guys do a lot of
That's
amazing
good.
stuff, and we really appreciate you coming on last time talking about Tiny Supers.
No, it's so good.
All right, Alan, if you had to pick one, best, worst, or strangest,
Walt
let's
wins.
just say
Walt would kill us all.
superhero
Make
movie
it
from the last 20.
clear.
What would you go with?
Best, worst, or strangest? Oh, that's a lot of options.
It is.
Oh, I have to think about that. Oh,
Okay.
I mean, I feel like the Marvel movies are easy pickings in a lot of ways. You know, like
Well, that was my problem with this subject because I was thinking, well, if I'm going for best or worst, I can get both of those from Marvel. If I'm going for absolute best,
You cannot get worst from Marvel, right?
I mean-
Shaq made a Steel movie. There is
Okay,
no
right.
Marvel movie that is worse than Shaq's Steel.
I was
Punisher?
limiting. I was thinking of the last 20 years, but yeah, I will give you that. And if we want to say absolute best, I would argue Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, maybe the last one.
oh,
I don't know, man. I would say Superman, the original Superman, for best. I mean, it translates a character that no one else has been able to translate to the screen outside of a cartoon.
I could see that. I don't know.
That's just because I'm a kid from the 70s. What I mean is, of course, I'm going to say Christopher Reeve Superman is Superman.
I was going to say Amazon's Tick, but I don't know if anyone watched that except for me.
Oh, my God.
Oh, I
yeah, that was
loved
so
that
good.
show.
That was so good.
Alan, you watched it.
Mind-blowingly
You
good.
guys, you might be the only other people who've seen it besides me, and that's why they canceled it. I'm glad you guys liked it. Alan, did you
man.
like it? Did you like that show, Alan?
I loved it. It was fantastic. I had a lot of friends who they preferred the earlier Patrick Warburton one, but I thought they were different in the good sort of way that made it interesting to watch, and it wasn't just a rehash.
Yeah, man, that first episode, how it plays with you. At the beginning, you're like, oh, it's going to be this. You're like, well, that might be interesting. And then by the end, you're like, oh, my God, that's so great. Like, it's just, I don't want to ruin anything for anyone who's going to go see it because it's still out there on Amazon. Perfect first episode. Great first season. Although there is a jarring moment between episode 1 and episode 2 where you're going, these guys are way older now. It was like they did the pilot 1 year and then the next year is when they did the show.
Yeah,
Like,
they did that Amazon
year.
They did that Amazon pilot season where they filmed a bunch of pilots and loaded them all, and then based on what got watched is what they made.
Oh, what about the
So,
boys? That comes out soon, yeah.
Oh, I couldn't do it.
I'm a fan.
I
was a
do
fan
not
of the comic.
find the boys interesting or innovative or good.
It's ironic. I like all the actors. Everybody
assuming
is
anyone can still
fantastic.
hear me. All the boys are to me is what if superheroes were all mean psychopaths? That's not interesting. It's not realistic.
I understand Garth Ennis doesn't like superheroes in the traditional mold, and I understand that because every comic he's written in the last 30 years has had that as the subtext. I don't know if I need the boys to kind of draw a few more heavy black lines underneath that point.
Well, yeah. I mean, but on the other hand, I always like regular folks against powerful people. And this one just supposes, hey, what if all the people who are out there in our real lives messing with us, corporations, all these people who have money, who could just go, I spent $1 billion to change everyone's opinion. What if those people had superpowers to do that instead? And what if there were like 5 guys who cared enough to try and stop that in the only way they could? Now, to me, that's subversive, and I'm cool with that. For that show, you know, I don't want Batman to be that guy, and I don't want Superman to be the guy who's the a-hole, which DC has decided that's what the movies are going to be. I'm like, no.
Well, and the boys decided that, right? They very clearly have what is without
Yes.
question a Superman analog.
Not even an Ubermensch analog, you know, like a Nazi Superman. So it's like, okay, I get it, and they're the bad guys. That's fine, and I get that Garth Ennis hates superheroes. That's also acceptable. I think Garth Ennis mostly hates America, and not just America, but like the big, bold, like we're great, and then the undercurrent of, you know, but Nixon and all this other stuff. It's like, well, I get it. He thinks the superheroes are the same thing.
There's no actual analysis of any of those trends, and it's not what if they had superheroes to do that instead, right? The superheroes are largely dupes in the boys, And the corporation, there's a single mega corporation that has all of them. So you don't even have the question of corporate infighting. You could have done something like you could have taken the idea that Google once had the corporate motto, do no evil, and very obviously have given that up. You could have taken a lot of really interesting looks at what superpowers could do in the real world, and instead they just make them cartoonishly evil.
See,
I know. You're right.
Alan, go ahead.
No,
absolutely.
I would say that it's only subversive when it's not the trend, but we've had years of Watchmen and other things, right? It's no longer subversive. Now it's just the same old, right?
Well, fair enough. I think I'm just happy they're translating something accurately to the screen.
Oh, and I watched the first couple episodes, and all the actors are fantastic. The cinematography and the special effects and the costuming are all very tight. I just don't like it.
Yeah, it's really well done for something that is boring and done to death.
If you want to watch something subversive, let's talk about the animated Harley Quinn show on DC Universe. Because that is actually subversive.
I love that show. I actually had an episode of this podcast a couple months back where I made everyone watch clips of Harley Quinn, and they all hated me for it. But
if you like Rick and Morty or Venture Brothers especially, imagine they gave Venture Brothers the rights to actually do all the characters that they do in their show, and not go so far with like some of the creepy elements that they do with Superman and Batman. I think it's just the most recent show is just. The first 10 minutes are an amazing moment in television. I'm like, well, that's going to lose you subscribers there, DC. Absolutely. Just for the guy's T-shirt, I'm like, oh, man. I've been on Twitter long enough to know that those people were triggered immediately. What? Typity.
I feel like nihilist Jim Gordon is my spirit animal.
Oh.
Jim Gordon is just done.
Everything's gone.
And as he's talking, buildings are collapsing in the background behind him. And I'm like, I feel you, Jim Gordon. I feel this right now.
Hey, you mind if we... I've got a clip of Jim Gordon from that show right here. You guys want to check it out?
Absolutely. Throw it up there.
I just love sharing clips. I can't help it, guys. Forgive me.
I love when people get flagged on YouTube that aren't me.
All right, this is a compilation clip, but it's short. So here we go. And let's rewind that.
I wasn't playing with it. So you didn't call me about the break-in of Wayne Enterprises?
What? This is about the breakdown of my marriage.
The signal is for emergencies.
Well,
emergencies.
Sounds like Jim Gordon was having a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what I find really interesting about that series is that while they obviously are parodying their own stuff, they are doing it within a context that tries to keep the characters as recognizable versions of the characters, right?
Oh, no doubt.
When you talk about something like Venture Brothers does things like, hey, here's Johnny Quest as a speed addict and someone with childhood trauma, and that's not that's not necessarily unreasonable, but that is very definitely not a recognizable version of the character.
Right. It's whereas Jim on a clef.
Right. Whereas Jim Gordon as a burnout, it just seems kind of reasonable given what he has had to face. If you consider what it would be like being in charge of police in Gotham City.
The sliding scale is Penguin and Bane for 40 years, Batman. It just gets worse, man.
It's a parody that still sticks to the core elements of what it's parodying without moving too far into like a satire.
I think Diedrich Bader was the perfect choice for the Batman in this show because I love Brave and the Bold. I love that show. I could watch it from beginning to end again and again. And he's one of my favorite portrayals of that version of Batman, the Hammers of Justice Batman. I think Kevin Smith said it best. He's like, you know why everyone's like, why would you think Batman's scary? Like, if they look just at the 60s comics, like, what if you just saw climbing out of the darkness a guy in a blue and black Batman outfit grinning at you as he comes up with his fists up? It's like, yeah, that would be terrifying, man. And he's beating you up, and then a kid wearing panties and a cape jumps out and starts beating up your friends. Like, I would probably just be terrified for that everywhere I go. That's right.
If it's not a pride parade, I'm kind of concerned about that, visual.
Even if it was, imagine somebody just is built and jacked, grinning, and then starts just going nuts. I'd be like, well, I thought this was beads and fun. No, we're not. This is margarita time. Oh.
I worked as a reporter for a short time back in the 90s, and I remember we got this one tip about the city I was in. They're like, there's an awful lot of guys with warrants out who get pulled over and then get shot resisting arrest, and maybe you should do a story about that. And I'm a 20-something reporter. I'm like, I have no contacts except for like the PR guy in the city police department. How am I going to get this story? So I had one cop who was friendly with me sometimes. I went to him. I said, hey, how do I do this story? He came back the next day and said, you don't want this story. You don't want to start asking these questions and talking to these people, and you just don't want that kind of heat. So I left it alone. I don't know if it was true or, there's always scuttlebutt, but I have to think, if you were a cop in fictional Gotham City, at some point, aren't you just like, oops, there was another chlorine gas escape at Arkham Asylum. Gosh darn, how's that keep happening?
I have maintained that when people say that Bruce is crazy, I go, he's not, because he lives in Gotham City. And he also lives in a world where Wildcat was around in the 40s. So that city has been as shitty as it is and worse since the 40s. So he grabbed a costume and did what everyone does when the cops are also evil. And the city itself is a demon trying to kill you. Like, well, he has the ability to do it. He probably should.
Has modern day Batman just gotten too depressing? I stopped reading the comics because I'm like, fuck, I can't do this anymore.
I don't know, man. There's rays of triumph in there for me anyway.
There's this interesting problem, in my opinion, with comics. That format, the superhero comic format, was not invented with 100 years of continuity in mind, right? When we were originally just doing the drawn version of radio shows and the short trailer movies before the main movie, and it was not designed as a concept to survive the weight of analysis and criticism that it has to carry now. So as a comic book company, as someone telling those stories, you've only got a few choices. One of the reasons I think that the Marvel movies work so well is that we have not yet had 60, 70 years of those stories. At some point, they will probably have to reboot, like they have Spider-Man and effectively X-Men and a bunch of other things. But at the moment, we have a single story arc with a single Iron Man, that we have the beginning, the middle, and the end of his story, and everything in Marvel is woven through it. But if you have Iron Man come out in 1970, 50 years later, you have to say, well, are we talking about an actual 50 years of Iron Man? Is Iron Man now 80? Do we want to change over to this character? And comic books hate for anything to actual change. Like, the original Robin became Nightwing, and nothing else is ever allowed to change.
Well, I'd point out that movies have a different limitation in that actors will age out and pass away or have to stop. So there is sort of a default reboot that's going to always happen every 10, 15, whatever it is, years inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe that comics don't have to deal with.
Yeah, I'd like to. I've been hyping this book whenever I get a chance. Chip Zdarsky of Sex Criminals, if you've read that comic. He did Spider-Man Life Story last year, and the whole point of this book was, what if Spider-Man's life happened in real time, and each issue is a decade, and it just he manages to meld together a bunch of story arcs. It didn't make a lot of sense when they happened, and it's really
all collected.
Yep, you can get the graphic, the compilation right there, actually on Amazon. But yeah, it was the best Spider-Man thing I've read in decades. It was really pretty good. But he's that same kind of, and the last decade is Spider-Man in 2019, trying to figure out his legacy. Dealing with his kids, dealing with his wife, and has
anyone else here read the last Avengers story?
hadn't even heard of it.
And it wasn't a what if either. It was written. I can't remember who wrote it, but it was an all painted comic. It was amazing. Olivetti, I think, did it. And it's, I can't remember who wrote it, but it's about how it's the very last Avengers story.
It was written by Peter David.
Peter David, right? Kang and Ultron team up, and the heroes are basically like the very much B-team Avengers. Hawkeye, She-Hulk, and they all basically tell the last story. But there's a little snippet in there of Peter Parker, because he was at one time an Avenger, and he's talking about how he decided when he was in his 40s to sell the web fluid to 3M. He's like, I sold it off, and now I don't have to adventure anymore. My money problems are all solved, and I'm being responsible with the money that I have. And then his son comes in and goes, "Hey, Dad, there's going to be a science experiment over at the school with radiation stuff. I wanted to go." He's like, "Absolutely not. You're not allowed to go." I was just like, that Peter becoming a scientist and essentially doing what Doc Ock did with his life should have showed him what he should be doing rather than swinging. I mean, if we're going to make Peter an adult, then I see him doing that with his life as a legacy.
Yeah. So, awkward segue. Since we're talking about comics.
Blunt force segue.
Blunt force segue.
Especially with this art. Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, Alan,
who's the cover there?
This is Alan's comic. This is really amazing. It's a comic and it's an RPG supplement. And we haven't seen something like that in, well, let's say a long time. Alan, tell us about this book.
It's a comic and it's an RPG supplement, and it's something that the industry hasn't seen in a really long time.
I don't want to show too much of it because I don't want to ruin anybody's expectation or anything. But
so when we did the Kickstarter for Tiny Supers, one of the stretch goals was a comic with an adventure, and this is the outcome of that.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was a thing.
Okay.
Same guy who did all the art in the rule book. So
very, very nice.
Just these panels alone right here are just so kinetic. Very, very well done.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
I very much love his anatomy there. That's very cool. The eyes are also great.
Yeah, and then the what do you call it? Like some of the villain stuff. Like look at that. Tell me that's not where it
Hold on, man.
Yeah, look at some of the.
Oh, that's one of my favorite pages.
There's a lot of good storytelling graphically in this.
I hear the writing's not terrible too. Just so we're clear.
Yeah.
In case anybody wants to know, I did not screw up the writing.
But like so much done right for a comic, especially.
The last two panels is just great.
And what you're seeing, but then having, quality writing, a good RPG supplement stuff in the back, you cannot go wrong, especially at a $5.99 price point. Huge. I mean, just.
Is it print on demand?
It's PDF right now. Print on demand proofs shipped like last week.
Awesome. I will pick it up. This page sold me. I want it.
Woo.
So the back of the comic, you'll find Siege of Sentry City, a small, lightweight skeleton adventure that GMs can flesh out.
Yeah,
it's
actually an epic adventure that you can run at a con for 1 to 3 tables too, where they fight a techno magic kaiju that attacks Sentry City.
What? Yes.
We
need more of this.
You had me at kaiju.
Yeah.
I have everybody at kaiju. It's like an automatic hit for anybody.
So does nah.
My last module was a kaiju module for
Icons. You should scroll to the very back and show the back of the.
I mean, weirdly, my entry into being a fan of Marvel comics, the time I transferred from DC to Marvel as a child, was Godzilla versus S.H.I.E.L.D., right? When they were doing that, the Shogun Warriors. That was how I moved into Marvel, and I got introduced to all this Marvel stuff because I was a fan of Godzilla. So, I'm a very big fan of mixing supers and kaiju.
Yeah.
How was Godzilla versus S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I mean, it was the Godzilla comic, right? And it was S.H.I.E.L.D. was the primary group that were trying to deal with Godzilla because who else is going to deal with a giant kaiju?
It was the beginning of Shogun Warriors, right? Like
Well, Shogun Warriors never actually overlapped with Godzilla, even though they got the licensing at the same time. They did have Ronin Red or Red Ronin show up.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yep, it's Red Ronin. Those issues kind of had S.H.I.E.L.D. in them.
Yes, those issues had S.H.I.E.L.D. in them, even though Red Ronin clearly is a Shogun Warrior who's not officially a Shogun Warrior, which is why they can still occasionally mention it in Marvel, unlike Godzilla or the Micronauts or any of the rest of their licensed stuff.
Yeah.
But there's Fin Fang Foom now.
But what?
Fin Fang Foom.
Oh, yeah.
Godzilla who's not Godzilla.
Yeah.
He wears underpants. I want Godzilla to burn him with his giant nuclear breath, Fin Fang Foom.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, so we made a comic, and it was super expensive, and I would like to make more, but they're super expensive.
They are super expensive.
Every time I've looked into it a few times over the years, and I was like, it's going to cost how much for 22 pages? How much?
Well, we did 32 pages, too. So So
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, if you share my screen again, I got a clean capture of that image.
yeah, there's the Techno Magic Kaiju.
That is a thing of beauty, sir.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he is just coming over those buildings.
Yeah.
He is way bigger than.
Yeah, that's some sexiness right
Kaiju.
there.
Those heroes are not pleased.
So how was it running? How was it running an adventure like this at like cons and stuff like that? Can you talk about a multi-table experience?
Yeah. So ironically, the time we developed and ran it, I wrote it the morning we were going to run it because I forgot to write it, and we put it on the event calendar.
You are my kind of GM, sir.
And luckily, I had two very good friends of mine, John Wick and Ben Warner, were at the con with me, and so they volunteered to be my other two GMs.
Oh wow!
And so, which is why they have a credit in the author section there. So I wrote the outline, and then we brainstormed all the little pieces, and then we got into a room 15 minutes before it was supposed to go live, and we're like, all right, here we go. It was really fun. I mean, if you ever ran an epic event at a con, multiple tables, it's all sort of the same. You got to be loud. You got to give each. We basically just broke into 3 sections, right? There's 3 goals, and then they all affect the second act, right? It's a very basic plot structure, right? But it works because you can also run it as a single group, and you just over 4 sessions, you do a goal, and then fight the big monster at the end, and you've still got the same story structure. So
Nice.
It's just splitting you basically make 3 separate sections that coalesce into a pyramid. It's pretty easy. It wasn't actually that hard. I was surprised.
Cool.
Now I say that, and somebody's going to read it and be like, this is a terrible adventure. And I'll be like, it's probably
I
because I
don't
didn't
read
work
comments
that.
anymore. I only take questions. I don't read comments anymore.
That's definitely a healthier attitude.
Well, hey, speaking of adventures, Blunt Force Segway Part 2.
Woo!
Dan, you and Steve Kenson just released
Yes.
one for Icons.
Yes, we did. Polar Vortex. It is the beginning of Fall of the Phalanx, which is sequel to Rise of the Phalanx. It was written and illustrated by me and edited and proofread by Steve, who is an amazing, amazing editor. Big shout outs to Steve. I know he has a live stream today with Green Ornine, so he sends his regards but can't be here today.
Yep.
But yes, so Polar Vortex begins with some villains from the last overarching. Basically, the last set was to bring your heroes from a ragtag bunch of street heroes who don't know each other into the premier team of the city. I use the word the city because there's no real setting for icons, and also you can just plug it in wherever you want. You can plug it into Stark City if you wanted to. That would work.
Stark City. What is that?
Stark City, bad. And then, just like the last one, there's going to be 4 or 5 modules that can be played by themselves or all together to create an overarching story from the pinnacle of your superhero team to have more of a Fall of the Mutants, Avengers disassembled kind of ruination of your superheroes, but not in the way that you've seen before in terms of degrading your players' characters or their ideas. It's just there's a movement within the narrative that kind of goes after your heroes. I'm working on the next chapter now, which I will talk about at a later date. But at this point, Polar Vortex begins the new one. You do not need to have all 4 of them to play Polar Vortex, and Polar Vortex doesn't necessarily have to be the beginning of the new thing if you don't want it to be. It's featuring 2 heroes, a villain from the Rogues book, Tugungsk, and a villain from the last series from Cold War Conundrum named Arsenal. The story basically is Arsenal, after the heroes defeated him in Cold War Conundrum, they damaged his suit so badly that it's like creating this portal to the negative zone fill that I have for our universe, the Geist space, and it's creating this below 0 Kelvin aura of cold around him. He can barely control it at times, and so he's trying to find a cure. And he knows that there's a cure in the trophy room of the heroes of this particular module. So that's where it begins.
All right, cool. And since we're starting to run out of time, last but before segue, I want to talk to Owen, because Owen, you're doing cool stuff in the realm of superhero RPGs these days with your you're calling it Freedom Finder, right?
Yeah, so on my blog, owenkcstevens.com, I provide free content for RPGs, a lot of which is connected to Starfinder for the obvious reasons that I helped make that game, and therefore I still have a great deal of interest in that game. So one of the things I've been doing is sort of superheroic like tiered power sets, which I was originally designing for a Gamma World style post-apocalypse type setting. But the more I did it, first of all, it was surprisingly popular. And the more I thought, hey, you could combine these and do a superhero-like thing. So I've begun looking at a thing that I am, for obvious and uncreative reasons, calling Freedom Fighter, that is designed to be a not too distant future, maybe some of it in space, superhero-like setting for Starfinder, and it's developing and evolving on the blog as I go, and people make suggestions and give me feedback, and eventually I'm sure I'll compile it all. But I have a deep love of superheroes and superhero gaming. I played a stupid amount of Champions when I was younger, and I play so much Mutants and Masterminds now that even though I'm not the Mutants and Masterminds developer, Green Ronin did hire me. So, and for that matter, my company, Rogue Genius Games, does a lot of Mutants and Mastermind stuff with Jacob Blackman. Mm-hmm. So, and for that matter, some Icons stuff with people here. So, I'm exploring it. I've just gotten started on it, but so far the feedback's been very positive, and I'm interested to see what happens if you take a very much not designed for superhero narrative type game like Starfinder and paste superhero themes onto it and see what you end up with, because it's not going to be a standard comic book like setup, but then Dungeons and Dragons isn't a standard fantasy narrative setup either, and it's hugely popular, so I'm curious to see where that goes.
So if listeners or viewers are into this idea, Owen's blog is the place to go and find out more about this.
Yep.
And for someday it might be compiled and for sale, but for now, owenkcstevens.com is the place to go to check out more of that.
All right. Oh, I have the Spider-Man. What was that called again? That trade.
Hang on, let me do this.
Right.
Wow, we really went right back at the beginning. Jeez.
It all makes a full circle. It's happened before. It'll happen again. All right, hang on. Spider-Man Life Story.
Life Story. Well, I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Linkara. He does a show called The Top of the Fourth Wall, where he reads bad comics, and he just, for his 600th episode, he reviewed Sins Past. I never heard of Sins Past, and then I heard what it was about, and now I've got to read this Life Story thing, because I think it will cleanse my palate, because Sins Past is just one of the worst things I've ever heard ever happening in Spider-Man.
Top of the Fourth Wall is a great podcast. I check it out occasionally. But when I first reviewed Spider-Man Life Story in this podcast, the short version is it redeems so much bullshit from the 80s and 90s.
Oh, good. Man, because one more day in Sins Past, it's like, wow, are you just trying to murder Spider-Man for me? Like, I don't want to read it anymore. Like, after one more day, I was like, I don't want to read Spider-Man anymore.
They take the Clone Saga and make it good and have some emotional resonance to it instead of just being, cheesy bullshit. So yeah, I can't recommend it highly enough. And I am
buying it now. The second the cast is over, I'm buying it. So
all right, cool. And I meant to get to this too, and I know we're here at the end, but I want to talk about
nice.
This from Tiny Supers, which is Jack Norris. Hey, I know that guy. This is your guys' take on the Iron Age for Tiny Supers.
Yeah. It's so Century City is our kind of flagship city in the setting. It's kind of a near future, happier place, more metropolis than Gotham. And Haven City in Fallen Justice is a little more Gotham than Metropolis, if you force me to make an analogy to an existing universe everybody understood. But it's got a bunch of rules for superheroes without powers, vehicles, utility belts, gear. It's got great black and white and red art. All of it's black and white and red, the whole thing.
Very cool.
Black and white and red all over.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just like the Iron Age.
Cool. And available, came out just like last week.
A couple of weeks ago, our 4-year anniversary as a company. So
that's a long time in RPGs, man.
It feels that way every day.
Because you read the comments.
Yeah, that's my. I'll stop reading the comments.
They should have a compliment section, right? Like comments, yes, but also a compliment section. Just so you know where you're going to look, and then you'll be fine for the rest of your life. Just like, hey,
Yeah, until
thanks,
people
buddy.
start complaints in the compliment section, then it's just a trash.
Oh,
Like,
damn internet,
that's
damn
what the
freedom
whole-
of speech.
Gosh darn it, Mom! I told you to say nice
Man.
things in this forum.
Take over.
All right. Well, hey. Speaking of unpleasant things, I have to get back to this laptop over here, in which I slave away from my day job. But,
One more thing.
Yes.
Speaking
yes,
of my favorite movie, Superman, there's a moment in the movie that is
we weren't
just,
talking about that at all.
I know, but I wanted to leave you with this because it's one of the greatest parts of that movie. Superman saves a cat in the tree, remember? And he flies off.
Mm-hmm.
And the little girl goes inside to tell her mom, Mom, Superman, help me. And then the mom just savagely beats this kid. You can hear her screaming. I'm like, Superman, you still work to do, Superman. Where are you going, Superman? You get one kid. You were the cat.
Is this a real thing that happened?
It happens in the 70s.
It happens in the
yes.
movie.
Yes.
I don't
Don't you
remember
lie
that
to me.
at
I told you. You hear her slapping her. Slap, slap. The kid's crying, but Superman's just like flying and smiling. Like, you hear that, Superman. You could hear it. You definitely heard it. You heard the cat. I know you heard this kid getting beaten. Well, she chose the cat or her. I could have taken her away from the abusive mom, but you got the cat. 70s was hard. I'm just saying.
I felt like that was not the right note to end on after a bunch of those star products on
Okay,
people.
so Blunt
Keep it real.
Force once more. No one ever asked me what I thought was the very best superhero movie in the past 20 years.
Please,
So
please.
I'm going to give a quick answer. We can end on that, and it may be a surprise given how much I love Avengers Endgame, but I actually think the best superhero movie of the past 20 years is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Well, yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah, I can see that.
I think it is pure genius. I think it does exactly what every superhero movie wants to do, but rarely does. And I am fascinated by how successful it is at doing things like introducing Spider-Ham that I was sure I was going to hate and don't. I love that movie to death.
Some of Nicolas Cage's best work in recent
It
years.
really is.
We were
Yeah.
talking about that yesterday.
No, I think that does win. It is Spider-Man, so
Yeah.
anything with Spider-Man is going to be top of my list.
I'm good with that as our ending note, I think.
Yes. sorry.
To all of our listeners and viewers, thanks for checking in to the BAMF podcast today, and we'll check you next time. See ya.
Bye, folks.
Cheers.
Awkward moment after I hit the end button.